Is there a way to change the thoughts that come into your head? And if so, how else will this device be used to make you do things you don't want to do? Follow me down the rabbit hole about intrusive thought devices. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the rabbit hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we are talking about intrusive thought devices or like commercials in your brain. I don't know. Transcranial magnetic stimulation. I don't know. It's gonna be weird. It's about things that's going on in your head that people are doing to you. So, anyway, before we get started, I want to thank my husband for suggesting this episode. This idea was brought up on another podcast that he listens to called The Sean Ryan Show, and I'll be linking that episode in my show notes. I linked the podcast link and the YouTube link because he does a YouTube for each of his podcast episodes. So if you want to go watch that, I highly, highly, highly suggest it. They go over like a lot more in this episode. So I highly recommend the whole episode to you. It will really get your brain moving and thinking about a lot of different things. This is just one little snippet. They touched on it, but they didn't really go too in depth in it because this wasn't really like what the episode was about. So I decided, my husband actually asked me if I would do an episode on it. So here we are. I'm doing an episode on it. So thank you to Sean Ryan for having Eric Hecker was the guy's name on his show. So that way we could think about things a little bit differently and go deeper into some of the topics. So I'm going to start. This topic is very hard to kind of narrow down. So I'm starting with transcranial magnetic stimulation, which kind of ties into the intrusive thought devices, but kind of doesn't. And I'll tie it all together at the very end, but let's start here and then we'll work our way into there. So transcranial magnetic stimulation, I'm going to refer to it as TMS from here on out, just because it's way easier to say, was first developed in 1985. That's when it was first developed. I have theories about it, but again, we'll get into that later. The FDA approved the device for treatment-resistant depression in 2008. So it took them 23 years to get this approved by the FDA. For just the treatment-resistant depression, that wasn't for anything else, just that. That was the first thing that was approved. And then in 2013, Cerna transcranial magnetic stimulator, Cerna being the brand, was approved to help relieve pain caused by migraine headaches that are preceded by an aura. So if your migraine headache is not preceded by an aura, it cannot be treated by this device, according to the FDA. And then in 2018, they approved the brainwaves, deep TMS, for treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder. So, and they found that deep TMS, it helps more with obsessive compulsive disorder than just like regular TMS. And we'll kind of get into what the difference is in just a minute. And in 2021, TMS was approved to treat anxious depression. So there's a difference between like regular depression and anxious depression, which means there's a difference. So before it was only approved for just depression, and now in the last 2 years has been approved for anxious depression. How it works. So it's a little weird, but I went to like the big sources I thought. So I went to Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. Went to a lot of different clinics to figure out what the heck is going on. I didn't physically go there. I went to their website. I'm not trying to go to Ohio or Minnesota. I don't know where Mayo Clinic is. Anyway, doesn't matter. So according to Mayo Clinic, quote, during an RTMS, and just so you know, RTMS stands for repetitive TMS, session for depression, an electromagnetic coil is placed against the scalp of your head. This coil delivers magnetic pulses that stimulate nerve cells in the region of your brain involved in mood control and depression. It's thought to activate regions of the brain that have decreased activity during depression. You may also hear the term deep transcranial magnetic stimulation, or deep TMS. The difference between RTMS and deep TMS, or sometimes it's just referred to as DTMS, has to do with the type of coil used. The deep TMS coil stimulates deeper and wider areas of the brain compared to RTMS. Deep TMS coils have been FDA approved for OCD and to stop smoking, end quote. They go on to say that the science isn't completely understood, but it does ease depression symptoms and improve your mood. So they don't really know why this works, but they know that it's working. And your depression symptoms, your OCD symptoms, your smoking, it's not going to stop right away, but it's going to get better. And your mood's going to increase. You're going to feel better. Which, I mean, I understand, like, if your depression's starting to go away, of course your mood's going to feel better. But, I don't know. It's weird that that they bring up this, like, emotional aspect of it a lot. The device is only prescribed as, like, a last resort after they have taken, like, you've taken all the medication, done all the treatments, and nothing is working, and then you're allowed to try TMS. Which feels like for depression, like that, I feel like that threshold should be a little smaller, because I know depression can lead to suicide and we should stop that soon. But I don't know, like when you go to stop smoking, like you've tried everything else, you've tried like everything, and then you still can't stop smoking, so you go to TMS. I don't know. But I get a little iffy when they start trying to play around in your brain. So I'm a little nervous about this whole thing. But the idea is like a good idea, right? Like if we can help fix people's depression, their OCD for sure. People with OCD, that can be like completely crippling. All these different issues. Well, if we can help fix them, then absolutely we should. However, I worry about messing around in people's brains too much. Although I say that and I suggest people go to therapy all the time. So I don't know, pros and cons. But I'm not saying like physically rearrange what's going on in the brain. I'm just saying like talk some things out, you know? So why would a magnet affect how your brain works? I'm glad you asked. Thank you for coming up with such brilliant questions. So basically, TMS relies on electricity and magnetism and their ability to work together in your brain, which makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if we know anything about our brain. So this is from the Cleveland Clinic. They just said it better than I could. And like I couldn't rephrase what they were saying. So I just took their quotes right off their websites. And I linked all this so you can go read it if you want to. The Cleveland Clinic said, quote, "The space surrounding a magnet is magnetically active, and a magnet's influence in that space is known as the magnetic field. You can't see it, but the space still shows the effects of the magnet at its center. When you bring a magnet near something that conducts electricity, the interaction between the conductive item and the magnetic field generates electricity. So why does all this matter? It matters because your brain is electrically active." Wow, that was a really hard word for me. I'm really good with words. I should for sure have a podcast. The brain cells in your brain and nerves, known as neurons, use tiny amounts of electricity to send and relay information throughout your brain and body. Bringing a magnet close to your brain can influence your brain's electrical activity. That's why TMS targets specific parts of your brain, especially those related to your emotions, internal decision-making, feelings of pleasure, etc. End quote. So again, they're like really targeting this emotional thing, internal decision making. Okay, here's some questions, right? My conspiratorial brain is just like, ugh. So, okay, first of all, they're gonna target parts of your brain that are responsible for your emotions, internal decision making, and feelings of pleasure. So you're telling me that somebody is messing around with your brain and they can tell you that cats, for an example, I'm allergic to cats, right? But they can say cats are nice and you love them and they make you happy. That's an emotion. That's a decision that they're making for you on your behalf that you like cats now. And that's going to give you these feelings of pleasure when you see cats. What if I hated cats? I mean, I'm allergic to cats. I don't want to be, I think they're cute, but I shouldn't be around them because I'm allergic to them. I know that. Okay, let's use a different example. Snakes. I'm terrified of snakes. I cannot be around them without like having a full freaking meltdown. But you're going to tell me that somebody can go into my brain, say snakes are good. We love snakes. They're cuddly. They're cute. They do not want to harm you at all. They love you and you love them, and they make you feel good. They make you feel happy. They give you a sense of comfort and joy. Next time I see a snake, I'll be like, oh, look how adorable it is. And I go to cuddle it and it fucking bites me and I die. I don't know if I would die. I mean, some of them I might die. Some of them I might not. I don't know. There's different types of snakes. That's not the point. The point is, my body tells me, hey, snakes are bad. Run away from them. They're scary. I mean, I have probably an overreaction, I would say, to snakes. But typically, like the normal person would be like, that rattlesnake's going to bite you and it's dangerous and the venom's going to really hurt you. But they could go into my brain and tell my brain, no way. Snakes are good. Snakes are good. Cuddle with them. Let them love you. Their bites, it's not dangerous at all. That is just them giving you kisses, showing you love. The way dogs lick us and we're like, oh, they're just loving us and giving us kisses.
Did you know that over 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills? So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. We know that gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar, they get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with their first purchase. To claim your free D3 vitamins, visit try.easymelts.com/spring24. That's melts.com/spring24. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and say hello to the easy way. Menopausal and perimenopausal women, listen up. It's time to take control of your health and comfort, and Winona is here to help. Winona is a telemedicine company for menopause care who believes that your symptoms are real, important, and deserve to be taken seriously. And for many women, this starts with hormone replacement therapy. Winona's HRT is made with plant-based, bioidentical hormones rather than synthetic ones, so it better aligns with your body to offer relief from hot flashes, weight gain, and other uncomfortable symptoms. 80% of women who use Winona find relief within just 90 days. So, what are you waiting for? Get started today. Visit buywinona.com today to start your free visit. With free shipping and the ability to pause or cancel at any time, your path to wellness has zero obligations. Use code SPRING24 at buywinona.com for 25% off your first treatment plan. That's BYWINONA.com for 25% off. Winona, menopause care made easy.
I don't know. Okay, I went down a rabbit hole. Imagine that. So that's why I named my podcast this. There are different types of TMS. I wanted to include this because I thought it was important. So you have magnet strength, and this is similar to like an MRI. However, just like a much smaller area because you're just working on certain parts of the brain. You have pulse frequency. So TMS can be used at low frequency pulse at like at 1 hertz, or like a high frequency pulses at 5 to 10 hertz. And TMS that uses repetitive pulses is considered RTMS. Imagine that, repetitive TMS, as we kind of discussed earlier a little bit. So pulse patterns. So different pulse patterns can be used for treatment. One example is theta burst stimulation, or TBS, which is a certain type of TMS. And this, for an example, could be like a triple burst pattern of 5 hertz, meaning you get 15 pulses in a second. TBS is like a really fast, accelerated treatment. So instead of needing to go in for like treatment after treatment after treatment, it said like in 5 to 6 treatments, you can start to see like pretty significant results. So, but I think that most people probably don't qualify for this pulse pattern TMS. And then you have magnetic coil type and stimulation target. So these are like just different magnetic coils that target different parts of the brain. And as suggested by the name, like deep TMS targets deeper brain structure, which is why it's so good for OCD. Whereas like RTMS and TBS kind of they don't go as deep into your brain. They kind of stay closer to the outside. I don't really know much about the brain. Anyway, they don't have to go as deep. So the repetitive pulses they work because they can just like penetrate the shallower parts of your brain. I feel dumb saying that, but I don't really have like a better answer than that. So the conditions, as I talked about earlier, that TMS is approved to treat currently is major depressive disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, migraines, and smoking. That's it. Excuse me. Along with the major depressive disorder, you have the anxious depressive disorder. So you're either depressed or you're anxious and depressed at the same time. But that they're not trying to stop there, because in addition to those, research is ongoing to hopefully one day include addictions of all kinds, not just smoking, but like all addictions, Alzheimer's disease, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, chronic pain, eating disorders, essential tremor, fibromyalgia, Parkinson's disease, post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, schizophrenia, stroke complications, tinnitus and auditory hallucinations, and traumatic brain injuries or TBIs. I had a question about this like while I was reading through this, like if somebody has multiple of these, as an example, if they have an addiction and they're bipolar and they have a borderline personality disorder, can all of those things be treated at the same time, or are they different parts of the brain? I didn't get into all that. I don't think I could find the answers right now. But they're trying to expand what they're approved to treat. But as of right now, the FDA has only approved them for 5 different things. So there are some common side effects, because I was like, well, they're fucking around in your brain, so what are they doing? You know, the common side effects are scalp discomfort and pain, headache, tingling spasms or twitching face muscles, and then lightheadedness. But there are uncommon side effects, which to me tells me, if they have to list them, that they still happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they're listed as side effects, even if they're uncommon, they happen. They happen to somebody. And I feel like I'm somebody that like gets side effects really easily. So I'm always like curious, what are these uncommon side effects? Seizures, emotional highs or mania, especially in people with bipolar disorder, which may be why it's not approved for bipolar disorder yet. But also, like, if it's causing mania in people with bipolar disorder, should we not approve it for bipolar disorder? We should not do that. Hearing loss if your ears aren't well protected during treatment, which tells me that it's probably pretty loud, the treatment. And it says that more studies need to be done to determine if RTMS may have long-term side effects. So that tells me that they do not have enough research to put this on the market. But they did it anyway, so here we are. Now, don't get me wrong. There are side effects with anything you do or take. Every time you get a prescription, they hand you a paper that lays out all the side effects, and they're thick pieces of paper. It goes over side effects, like how to use the drug, all the different things. Like, I don't know, it goes over so many things, legal stuff. But this sounds like it could really help, potentially, for some people. But what happens when it gets in the wrong hands, or somebody only wants to use this for their best interest instead of, you know, people's best interest? Because right now you have like this, like, I want to call it like a warm and cuddly use for this device, or devices, excuse me. But I feel like it's not always warm and cuddly, right? Like, we always think like, oh, AI helps us. Like, we got chat GPT, blah, blah, blah. Oh my goodness, I can't talk today. And everyone's like, oh yay, like AI, it's helping us, right? But what happens when Terminator starts? Or like something crazy? Like, what happens when it's weaponized? Because we always weaponize things. I don't know why, as like human beings, we're like, well, that was cool. Let's see all the bad uses for it. Because it feels like every time somebody has like this idea to help change the world and fix the world, somebody else comes along, they're like, yeah, but look how much we can destroy the world with that same thing. Same concept, different purpose, different use, different execution. And man, is the execution on the opposite side like so bad. So, as mentioned earlier, I talked about the Sean Ryan show. So, on the Sean Ryan show, there was the guest, Eric Hecker. Hecker was a whistleblower. He is a whistleblower. He was on the show as a whistleblower, and he was the last one in a 3-part series that I highly recommend. If you don't just listen to his episode, listen to all 3 of the episodes, because like it really makes you think about UFOs in like a really weird way. And I thought about covering it, and I was like, no, you guys should just go listen to it, because they have like the actual people on there. And we decided to cover this episode or this topic because, again, they just touched on it. They didn't really like go in depth. He just mentioned some things and then moved forward. So go listen to it. But Hecker said something that stuck in my husband's head. Outside of all the whistleblowing he was doing, he said that McDonald's is trying to start putting commercials in your head while you're sleeping. And my husband was like, what? That can't be true. But then, Sean Ryan was literally like, well, where can we find this information? And the guy was like, on the internet. And they were right. It's on the internet. I found it. They popped up like a science.com article on the YouTube channel. There it is, on the internet. So this is what sent me down the rabbit hole about TMS, because TMS is like the medical happy version of what McDonald's is trying to do. And it's not just McDonald's, mind you. Like, he mentioned McDonald's, but in all the articles I found, they didn't mention McDonald's at all. In fact, they mentioned a bunch of other people, but not McDonald's. However, Hecker did say that McDonald's is hoping to roll these commercials out in the next year. If that tells you, like 2024, I'm looking at like McDonald's in my brain commercials. But somebody else did it well before then. So this isn't new. I found a science.com article and a Popular Mechanics article, both from July of 2021, that talked about this. In both articles, they're citing a letter from sleep researchers that are demanding regulations on dream advertisements, because they're like, this can get dangerous quickly, and if we don't regulate what they're putting onto our brains, they'll do whatever they want. And that they're not wrong. The Molson Coors beverage company, which owns Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Blue Moon, among so many other beverages, used this technology just days before the Super Bowl in 2021. The first people that we know about that have used the technology. They admitted to having the technology and said that they can make you see alcoholic beverages dancing through your head. So, like, they can make you see a Coors in your dreams while you're sleeping, and then you wake up, you're like, wow, you know what I could go for? I'd go for a nice, refreshing Coors Light. I don't know. I don't drink beer. I think that maybe I wouldn't like it. I don't like most beer, actually, so I think that I don't like Coors. But they had to have used it on people here in Denver, because they're a local, they're just over in Golden. Like, they're a local company here. They're huge, but they're local to the area. So this is called Targeted Dream Implantation, or TDI. So TDI has, this has been done in labs for a long time now. They introduce sounds and pipe in smells that will shape what people dream about. So MIT is using a device called Dormio to guide dreams towards specific topics. For example, TDI has been used to help people stop smoking. And they found that when they introduced like a rotten egg smell, like a picture of a cigarette and a rotten egg smell, they had a 30% decrease in smoking when they did this while you were sleeping. So the biggest difference here, yet again, is this is being used for good and in a laboratory situation. So they're trying to help people that smoke and that want to stop smoking. They're trying to help them stop smoking. It makes sense. Absolutely. Well, what happens when they don't care if you're smoking or not? They want you to buy their product. So according to Popular Mechanics, quote, Molson Coors, meanwhile, collaborated with Deirdre Barrett, a PhD, a part-time assistant professor of psychology at Harvard University's Department of Psychiatry. Per per the press release, quote, Barrett worked with the Coors team to develop a stimulus film that, when paired with a curated 8-hour soundscape, induces relaxing, refreshing images, including waterfalls, mountains, and of course, Coors, end quote. So basically, they tried to use like their regular like advertising tactics, which is like waterfalls and mountains, and because they're like, oh, we're at the base of the Rocky Mountains, we use fresh Rocky Mountain water in our beer, which I don't believe that, but whatever. And if they do, well, there's probably a lot of fluoride in your Coors. I'm connecting a lot of conspiracies in this episode. So anyway, they use their normal advertising techniques, but now they're trying to put it in your brain while you're sleeping, which is terrifying. So Adam Haar, who is a cognitive scientist and PhD student at MIT, lays out the biggest problem. He says, quote, people are particularly vulnerable to suggestion when asleep, end quote. Which, like, the same idea, I feel like they're trying to use the idea, like when you study, you get all these things in your brain, and then you go to sleep, and you're like, oh, I dream about this, right? Like, I'm dreaming about this problem, and I'm dreaming about all the ways to solve this problem, so tomorrow I don't fail my test. I think the same kind of idea is, like, they're trying to put it in your brain, so when you wake up, you're like, oh, you know what I could really use? A sausage McGriddle from McDonald's. That sounds phenomenal. Or, wow, I've been craving a hot and spicy McChicken all day, which I found out is regional. It's not everywhere. So if you don't have hot and spicy McChickens, you're missing out. Anyway, Haar had been approached by at least 3 different companies to help with dream advertisements, Microsoft being one of them, and then 2 airlines, but they didn't specify which 2 airlines. And he did say he helped with a game-related project, but he didn't feel comfortable participating in ad campaigns. So I don't know, like, was it a dream game-related project? I don't know. A huge concern, as of these articles in 2021, is that there are no regulations, like at all. So companies can decide to use your smart devices in your home, so smartphones, smart speakers, to detect your sleep stage, and then play sounds to influence your dreams. So you have an Alexa next to your bed. You're like, all right, good night. Alexa's listening to you because your breathing patterns and your snoring patterns tell us what stage of sleep you're in. And then depending on the stage, because it has to be a certain stage that you're suggestible in, they play these sounds and these things that tell you, like, and then you wake up, you're like, wow, I've been thinking about Coors all night long. I've been thinking about Microsoft. I need to switch from Apple to Microsoft or whatever, right? Like, so many things can happen. Wow, I should take a flight. Southwest is having a great deal right now. I don't know why I know that, though. That's weird. But you know what I kept thinking about when I was doing all this research? Have you ever had a dream that, you had so much on your brain while you were sleeping that when you woke up, you didn't feel like you got a very good night of sleep? And how many times in our lives have we been told by every expert and everybody ever, like, sleep is when we regenerate, we heal, we recharge for the next day. If we don't get enough sleep, then it's not good for us. And specifically women, because women, I don't know if you know this, and I didn't put any of this in my notes, this is just from my brain, but our hormones like regenerate, I guess. I don't know. I guess regenerate would be the right word, overnight while we're sleeping. So it's actually really harmful specifically for women if we don't get enough sleep, because we'll have like pretty low estrogen levels, whereas testosterone in men, it regenerates all day long and you don't have to sleep for it to like do its thing. Whereas estrogen, like I just hit my microphone. You do have to sleep in order for it to get back up to like the levels that you need. So if women aren't getting enough sleep, their estrogen levels are going to be low. So if you think you have low estrogen levels, sleep more or whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Just go with me here. So if you're having these dreams or you're having like these intrusive thoughts in your head, is that causing you to, number one, not sleep well because now your brain's thinking about so much is going on in your head? Are you not sleeping well? Is this causing other effects on your body? Are you not healing? Are you not regenerating? Are you not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing while you're sleeping because these ads are playing and you're thinking about these ads instead? You're thinking about McDonald's, Microsoft, airlines, Coors, all these different places, and you're not actually thinking about like whatever your brain and dreams really. So many people, so many cultures use dreams as a healing or like as like your brain is trying to figure something out or is talking to you, or there's so much that goes on in our dreams, right? And that so many people have put so much thought and effort into what our dreams mean and why they happen and all these different things. So you're taking that potential spiritual aspect away from people to put in an advertisement, because your advertisement on my podcast, your advertisement on my YouTube, on my Spotify, on my freaking whatever I'm watching isn't enough. So now you need to interrupt my dreams as well. I can't walk down the road without seeing a billboard, but here I am like dreaming about McDonald's as well. This is obnoxious. Eric Hecker brought up a good point. He was saying that McDonald's wants to put commercials in our heads, in our dreams. And he was like, I kind of had the same thought at the same time as him. If they have this technology now, who else has had it for years? And then before he said it, like literally out loud, I was like, Havana syndrome. And he was like, what about Havana syndrome? And I was like, yes. Okay. So I was on the same like wavelength as him when he was talking about this. So if you think back to my Havana syndrome episode, this kind of actually, it makes a whole lot of sense. And if you're trying to put all these pieces of the puzzle together, it's all fitting. So if you haven't listened to the episode, here's like a quick recap because I don't want you to have to go listen to that whole episode just to understand this. So Havana syndrome is like this mysterious illness that is affecting the intelligence agencies that have agents stationed in different parts of the world. It was first reported in Havana, Cuba, which is why it's called Havana syndrome, although it has happened all over the world now, but because it was first reported in Havana, it's called Havana syndrome. So some of the symptoms include, but are for sure not limited to, ringing ears, headaches, nausea, vertigo, impaired memory, fatigue, so many other things like brain damage, like crazy things. People reported hearing like chirping and beeping, and then they had all these like basically some of them were in like a brain fog. Some of them literally had to quit their jobs and go into retirement because it like messed up their brain so much. So, and I had the thought during that episode that it was like frequencies, which it could still be frequencies. As we heard earlier with the TMS thing, they're using frequencies to pulse into our brains for depression. But why can't they use frequencies to pulse into our brains for other things, like weaponizing things? Is this the same technology? Maybe. They tried to gaslight people that were having these symptoms, but maybe it's all connected. This is why I included the TMS stuff at the beginning of the episode, because I do think it's all connected. I think they somehow weaponize this using the TMS and the TDI or both. I don't know. But if they're using it for a few people here and there, how long until they use it against the entire nation or an entire nation? It doesn't have to be our entire nation. Maybe they're going to start on a small nation. But how long have they had these intrusive thought devices? How long have they had these things? Because, and Hecker brought this up in his episode, or in the Sean Ryan show as well, if they've been doing this for a while, this actually makes a lot of sense as to why everything's happening in the world right now. And I'm not trying to make this political. That's not the point. But like, if you look at how like drastically different the world has been basically since 2020, right? And yes, we can blame the pandemic all we want, but there's a lot of things that came out like social justice wise, like all over the world or all over the country. It's been very strange. So how long have they had intrusive thought devices? And are they already using them to put these thoughts into people's heads? And that's what's causing the things that are happening in our world right now. Does that make sense? I don't know. There's a lot that goes into this, but if you look at the evidence is there to say that they know how to get things into our brains. Coors has actively used this brain commercial thing. They've used it. It's happened. And they used it 2 years ago. McDonald's is saying they're going to use it next year. Well, Coors, which is a company, like a very public company, a beer company, is coming out with this. You're telling me that nobody in the government, nobody else has ever thought about this ever before? That's a lie. That's a damn lie. I think that it can definitely mess with our health in more ways than one. I mean, look at Havana syndrome for an example. But I think that there's a lot that goes into this that people are not looking at the consequences, or they just don't give a fuck. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Because this one really got me. I was like really, really into this. And there I got all the information I could. I literally gathered everything. There's just not that much information out there on this. Like I said, only 2 websites even had the letter. And the letter was, this letter from the sleep researchers was posted on a forum. Or not a forum, like a website, like a popular website. So it's not like they just like hid this letter. They're like, nope, here. And they had 3 people that wrote it. And then they had 20 or 18, I think, other sleep researchers that signed it saying like, yep, we agree with this. So, and they literally study sleep for a living. I don't know. There's something definitely weird going on in the world, and anyway, until next week, my friends, stay skeptical, and I will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.